Audio Jungle.
From the studios of K.L.P. Entertainment, this is SNN Sports. Yeah.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Major history in Miami. Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers can clinch a playoff spot with a win as he continues his chase for the first 50-50 season in MLB history. Entered the game at 48 home runs, 49 stolen bases, and there it is. His 50th stolen base after a leadoff double, swipes third. Now 2 homers away from 50-50. Yeah, grab that back. Top 2, Ohtani's second at bat. 2 on, 2 outs. Into right, Max Muncy scores. Dodgers lead 2-0. Ohtani would steal second to make it 51 stolen bases. Double, single, RBI run, and 2 stolen bases on the day for Shohei. And it's only the second inning. Top 3, 2 on, 2 outs, delivers again. 2-run score. Ohtani tries to stretch it for a triple, but he gets tagged out, but the damage is done. And the Dodgers lead 7-1. Ohtani threw 3 innings, 3 hits, 2 for extra bases, 3 RBIs, and 2 stolen bases. It's ridiculous. Ohtani's next at bat. That's gone. 2-run homer. Dodgers lead it 9-3. Now 49 homers and 51 stolen bases. Matches Sean Green for most home runs in a single season in Dodgers history. He's not done. His next at bat. Ohtani. 1 home run away from 50. And that's gone. 50 for Shohei. The first player in MLB history with a 50-50 season. And he knew it as soon as he hit it. Sets the Dodgers record for most homers in a single season. But that pales in comparison to the first 50-50 season in MLB history. He's not done. Next AB, top 7. Facing position player Vidal Brujan, up in the zone, and you still don't want to go there. Number 51! The Dodgers hang 20 on the scoreboard because Ohtani went 6 for 6 with 10 RBIs, 3 homers, 2 stolen bases. First player in MLB history with 3 homers and 2 stolen bases in a game. First season with the Dodgers. He's going to the postseason. Remember, he signed that 10-year, $700 million deal, $680 deferred. He was a part of a betting scandal. He was not found guilty in that. That he is one of the greatest players in MLB history. There's no denying that. Didn't care if he played the field this year. He had elbow surgery in September. Second elbow surgery. Didn't pitch at all, but what is he doing his first season in Los Angeles? He makes history. Dodgers clinch a playoff berth for the 12th straight season, and Ohtani matches the Hall of Famer Rickey Henderson. Most games with a homer and a stolen base in a single season since 1901. But Shohei Ohtani stands alone, the first 50-50 season in MLB history. And for more, welcome in baseball insider, former MLB Executive of the Year, Jim Bowden. Jim, what did we just witness? What you witnessed is one of the greatest baseball players that ever played, a generational talent that we've quite frankly never seen before. And when he came to the States, everyone was comparing him to Babe Ruth because he was a two-way player. Well, the reality is he's a far superior player than Babe Ruth ever was. I'm not sure if he's a human being or not. I think in time we might find out he's artificial intelligence or from another planet. I've never seen a talent like this in my entire lifetime. It is incredible. And to be able to accomplish 51 homers and 51 steals and counting, I never thought I would see that day. I had a player, Alfonso Soriano, who did 40-40 for me in Washington, but I never thought I'd see the day of a 50-50 player because it's never been done before, and now it has been. He is the Taylor Swift in the sports world, right? Taylor Swift is the biggest celebrity in the music world. Well, this is the biggest celebrity in the sports world in countries around the world, not just in America, not just in Japan or Canada. We're talking the world, China, Russia, everywhere. Everybody is looking at Shohei Ohtani, doing things that no one else ever has. The other thing that's great about Ohtani is how much he loves the game. He's a little kid. He enjoys it like a young child does. He has his own program. He doesn't follow anyone else's program. He sleeps more than any major league player. He sleeps like 14 hours a day. He is very into nutrition, keeping himself in shape, and going with his own routine. His mechanics are unique to him. He's one of a kind, and we all need to stop, take a deep breath, and enjoy his accomplishments because he is one of the greatest icons on planet Earth. The fact that he's 6'4", 210, and he's stealing 51 bags, I mean, come on. 6'4", 210, and Jimmy's swiping bags like he's Ricky Henderson. That that just doesn't happen about is what he can do on the mound, because when he's healthy next year, we're talking about an ace. Yeah, we're talking about a Cy Young candidate. And by the way, manager Dave Roberts telling me recently there's a chance that he can pitch in the postseason. Granted, he'll probably out of the bullpen, but I can just see the drama. A Yankees-Dodger World Series, ninth inning, Game 7, and a one-run lead, and here comes Shohei Ohtani to the mound. Like, you can't put it past them. This is almost like it's a fictional baseball book, right? That's what this has been, and it's incredible to watch. 6 seasons in LA with the Angels, no playoffs. 1 season with the Dodgers, and they've got a playoff appearance. And of course, they have a monster payroll and a roster that's ready to win a World Series. The addition of Shohei Ohtani has meant what to this roster as they chase another World Series title? Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a game changer, and I think it's obviously in baseball, one star can't do anything, right? We've seen Mike Trout never make the playoffs with the Angels like Ohtani, but what you did is you added Ohtani to a lineup that already had future Hall of Famers like Freddie Freeman, like Mookie Betts, like Clayton Kershaw. You put him in a room of a team that we've witnessed going to the postseason every year that Andrew Friedman's been president of the team. And so you put a player that has really put them over the top. Now, the Dodgers are a flawed team because of all the injuries they've had to starting pitching. It's brought them back to the pack. But their lineup, their offense, 1 to 9, is as good as anybody in baseball. And it's a lineup that can hit the best pitching. So they're going to be a real threat come October. It's going to be a lot of drama. There's a lot of great teams. I mean, the Dodgers are going to have to deal with the Phillies and the Padres and the Brewers, they're all capable of getting to the World Series. But Ohtani absolutely gives them an advantage. When you look at what Ohtani's done, and we have new rules in baseball, do you think he could have done this under the old rules? I do think absolutely. I'm going to answer that as yes, and I think if he wants to, he'll end up with 60 stolen bases this year. Look, I think that the old rules, you're probably around 42 stolen bases right now instead of 50, but that doesn't mean you couldn't get there anyway. The new rules have helped. I'm not gonna shy away from that. It's a great question and a great point. It is that much easier to steal. But do I think he could have done it anyway? Do I think he would have done it anyway? Absolutely. Curious where he would have played. First base where he put him, right? Yeah, it's a great point, right? Because honestly, he obviously wouldn't have played if there was no DH, right? Right? Because of the Tommy John surgery, so he would have had to sit out. So the DH rule being adapted for the National League, absolutely was a game changer for Ohtani. 2 unanimous MVPs in the American League. We know what Francisco Lindor did for the Mets this season and is doing, put them on his back. Do you think this is going to be a unanimous MVP for Shohei? Yeah, I don't think it's going to be unanimous, Akeem. But I wrote an article today on this issue because I do believe he's the MVP in the National League over Francisco Lindor and Ketel Marte and Bryce Harper. In the American League, I think Aaron Judge is going to win over Bobby Witt Jr. and Juan Soto. But there is a contingent of writers who make this decision, who make the votes, that are from New York, that are pushing Francisco Lindor, that are going to vote for Lindor because he played the valuable position of shortstop. And so there is a group of writers that are pushing Lindor. So I don't think it's going to be unanimous, but I will tell you clearly, and I mean this, and I love Francisco Lindor, and I think he's had an MVP caliber season. There's no doubt in my mind Ohtani should win this award. I have to agree when a guy goes 50-50. I covered Francisco Lindor in Cleveland, one of my favorite players in baseball. Shohei Ohtani, I've seen with you a couple of his home runs live. It's effortless. It's incredible what he does. He's the best player in the sport. That argument will happen when the award season comes out. Are you awarding the best player in the sport, or are you awarding the most valuable player on your team? Because the Dodgers are probably still going to get a playoff spot with or without Shohei. You can argue that. The Mets aren't getting the postseason without Francisco Lindor, and we both can agree on that. But at the end of the day, Shohei's the MVP. There'll be conversations, and we'll have them. But on this day, it belongs to Shohei. 51, the first 50-50 season in MLB history. Jim Bowden providing perspective here. One of the best in the game. Shohei Ohtani, one of the best in the game. As you take a look at his season, I mean, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Let's look at these numbers. It's silly. This is like a video game for Shohei Ohtani. As we sit here.
Audio Jungle.
In the streets, so don't stop now. In the streets, so don't stop now. DJs, LMB, just find out. In the mode, there's no to drop.
From the studios of K.L.P. Entertainment, SNN
Just find out.
Sports.
In the mode, there's no time to flop now. In the streets, so don't stop now. DJs, LMB, just find out. In the mode, there's no time to drop. So don't stop now. DJs, LMB, just find out. In the mode, there's no time to flop now. In the streets, don't stop now. DJs, LMB, just find out. In the mode, there's no time to drop. Don't stop now. DJs, LMB, just find out. In the mode, there's no time to drop.
Giants QB Daniel Jones needs to find a balance between ball security and splash plays. There was a play Daniel Jones made in his first career start that had the New York Giants, and most of their fans, convinced this was their next great quarterback. It came in the third quarter of a thrilling come-from-behind Week 3 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2019 season. Jones, the number 6 overall pick earlier that year, was under pressure off the edge to his right. He slid effortlessly in the pocket to his left, scanned the field and fired an off-platform bomb across his body 42.5 yards in the air. It was such a tough throw that it had just a 37% chance of completion, according to NFL Next Gen stats. But this particular throw was a thing of beauty, with the ball flying from the left hash mark deep downfield to the right hash, over safety Mike Edwards and away from cornerback Vernon Hargreaves III. It landed in the hands of rookie receiver Darius Slayton in stride for a jaw-dropping 46-yard gain just short of the end zone. The Giants would score moments later on a touchdown pass from Jones to Sterling Shepard. But it's that throw to Slayton that still resonates just over 5 years later, not because of its importance in that game, but because it's puzzlingly no longer part of Jones' arsenal. He had 35 tight window completions and 12 starts as a rookie. That number has decreased in every season since. That previous version of Jones has disappeared. The young and promising rookie who threw the ball downfield with regularity and little regard for repercussions, throwing 24 touchdown passes his rookie season and nothing close in any years since, the most being 15 in 2022, barely exists anymore, making an appearance only on the rarest of occasions, such as Week 2 last year against the Cardinals when he opened it up and aired it out on multiple occasions to the speedy Jalen Hyatt as the Giants rallied for a 31-28 win. The hour appears to be getting late for Jones and the Giants. He is in his 6th season as the starter and needs to locate the right balance of that rookie or gunslinger and his more conservative current form. The coming weeks, beginning with Thursday's game with the NFC East rival Dallas Cowboys, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, Prime Video, are all about finding out where that quarterback who zipped that ball to Slayton in Tampa Bay has gone and whether he can resurface. This Daniel Jones is bigger, stronger than the 2019 version but has more calluses. He's not anywhere near as aggressive as his younger self. It's still in DJ, and I think that there are times where you still see flashes of that, Slayton said. But we spent 2 years of Giants coaches trying just to play defense and the offense, not make mistakes. Jones averaged 7.8 air yards per attempt as a rookie in Coach Pat Shurmur's offense. That is down to 6.7 air yards per attempt from 2020 until now. Even in his best season in 2022, Jones was at 6.0 air yards per attempt, 33rd out of 33 qualifying quarterbacks. He's at 6.2 this season. The turnovers have certainly decreased, 1.8 per game in his first 2 professional seasons to 0.9 per game since, as a result, but so have the splash plays. You don't want to lose that gunslinger mentality, Jones said. I think you want to understand when those opportunities are there and when to take them. And you're always kind of trying to balance that. Jones' future is uncertain. The Giants made that abundantly clear this offseason when they tried to trade up in the draft for his replacement. This is the year for Daniel, General Manager Joe Schoen said on Hard Knocks this summer. Plan all along was, to give him a couple years. Is he our guy for the next 10 years? Or do we need to pivot and find somebody else? Jones struggled in the opener but has bounced back with 2 strong performances against the Washington Commanders and Cleveland Browns. His QBR through 3 weeks is 52.7, which ranks him 16th of 31 qualifying quarterbacks. He didn't attempt a throw of 20-plus air yards in the opener, and is 1 of 8 this season for 28 yards. That one completion was when rookie receiver Malik Neighbors wrestled the ball from the hands and off the head of a Browns cornerback in Week 3. Now it's time to test where they are against a Dallas Cowboys team that beat them 40-0 last year in Week 1 at MetLife Stadium. I've played more, seen more, studied and improved, Jones said. Obviously, didn't go great last time, but we're confident, it's a new team. We're a new team, they're a new team, and we're excited for the opportunity. The Giants fired Shermer and replaced him in 2020 with Joe Judge, who brought along former Cowboys coach Jason Garrett to be his coordinator. That lasted until Garrett was fired midway through the 2021 season, replaced by former Browns coach Freddie Kitchens. They finished a combined 10-23 in the 2020 and 2021 seasons. The offense and Jones struggled. That regime tried so hard to shake the turnovers out of Jones that Slayton believed it caused irreparable damage. Every day somebody's telling you, hey, don't turn it over. Don't turn it over, don't turn it over, don't turn it over, Slayton said. You're just going to go out there and try not to turn the ball over. It's like if they're trying to preach a certain way of playing, you conform to that. It's just natural. Jones' aggressiveness seemed to flip to the opposite end of the spectrum during Judge's tenure, when he became super conservative. The pounding of prudence into his psyche wasn't the only contributing factor. Owner John Mara conceded when he hired General Manager Joe Schoen and Coach Brian Daboll in 2022 that the Giants had already done everything possible to screw this kid up. The kid being Jones. The constant changing of coaches, offensive coordinators, pairing him with a bad offensive line and no true number 1 receiver, Mara said the Giants had done it all. Jones was shell-shocked. He has been sacked 187 times since entering the league in 2019, 3rd most in that span. The more hits he takes, the harder it becomes to hang in the pocket with confidence. That lack of confidence leads to his eyes dropping. It speeds up his reads or, worse, he doesn't get through them at all, even when there is time. He settles too quickly for the check down. These can all be fallouts of the situation, according to an offensive coach familiar with Jones. Jones' future hinges directly on how he performs this season. He's due $30 million next year, but the Giants can get out of the deal with a manageable $22 million in dead money. His contract has a reasonable escape clause after this year, just in case. It's going to take a miraculous remainder of the season for the Giants to want to run it back, again. They need to see Jones play better than he did in 2022, which earned him the 4-year, $160 million deal. He threw 15 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions that year, while running for another 7 scores. The Giants signed Jones with the intention he could improve on that and become a top 5 caliber quarterback, with hope he could turn into a 30-plus touchdown guy. That is what the team needs to see, or some version of it, for him to be the long-term answer at quarterback. The upside: I've got a lot of belief in our staff and Daniel's work ethic and, Daboll and Jones, relationship that will continue to grow, and Daniel will continue to get better, Schoen said after signing Jones. If he's just at his floor right now, I'm really excited about what his ceiling is going to be. The perception of Jones around the league appears significantly different than an improved vision. Maybe a bridge starter, one NFL general manager said of his value as a free agent if the Giants cut him after the season. It's a situation probably where he's competing to start. The $30 million he's owed next season is a relative bargain if he's a quality starter, the executive said. That makes drafting a quarterback and keeping Jones a possibility. They weren't shy about drafting a quarterback to compete with Jones this year, the executive said. So why would that change? It probably wouldn't as long as Jones continued to play well. The Giants insist his confidence is not a problem. The quarterback has said the same. The results the past 2 weeks on the road against Washington and Cleveland seem to back up his belief. Dable spoke last week about a study he commissioned from his analytics team on throwing the ball 20-plus yards downfield. Winning teams have done it 3.5 times per game early this season, they concluded. The Giants threw 4 deep passes against the Commanders and 4 this past week against the Browns after 0 in Week 1. Maybe they are moving in the right direction. The Giants spent all spring and summer putting an emphasis on getting the ball downfield. Their quarterback is getting this new message drilled into his head. You always want to take your shots when you have them, Jones said. Certainly looking to do that when I can. Dable's reputation is as a quarterback guru. He's running the offense this season and now has 3 games as play caller with Jones under his belt. Dable is calling the shot plays and expects his quarterback to take them. Certainly, if he has the right look, I think he'll throw it, Dable said. Jones has done that the past 2 weeks, even if it's without much success. Some of that has to do with the opposing defenses. The Giants have faced the 6th most passing snaps against Cover 2 defense at 18.5%. Cover 2 defense protects the back end of the field with 2 deep safeties and begs the quarterback to choose underneath or intermediate routes. Jones is looking downfield only to see the safeties deep. In Week 1, he panicked when it wasn't there, hesitated and showed too much indecision. Dable noted after Week 2 Jones was more decisive with his reads. It remains a work in progress after what he has been through the past 5 years. All this could make it that much harder to imagine Jones recapturing the aggressiveness of his 2019 rookie self. Or even a more improved version in New York. If you were going to driver's ed and they just showed videos of fatal car crashes, one NFL assistant said, you'd probably be a cautious driver too.
Audio Jungle.
From the studios of K.L.P. Entertainment, this is SNN Sports.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
How Cowboys Trayvon Diggs got over torn ACL and back to form. Dallas Cowboys cornerback Trayvon Diggs couldn't help himself. Emotions were pouring out before the season opener against the Cleveland Browns on September 8th. Diggs was wrapped in a hug with assistant head coach Al Harris, who is more mentor than coach. His helmet and face mask covered his eyes, but his head was buried on Harris's shoulder as they swayed back and forth. 353 days earlier, Diggs had limped off the practice field, knowing his left knee was badly injured. The humid September air was sucked out of the Cowboys' practice because everybody knew what was coming a few hours after he had an MRI. He was diagnosed with a torn left ACL that would end his season. Now, on a perfect September date at Cleveland's Huntington Bank Field, just a short throw from Lake Erie, it hits Diggs, who is not known to show his feelings. I didn't feel it until I was actually out there, Diggs said. It was, wow, I'm actually back. Yeah, it was emotional for me. After so much time away, a lonely journey to prove he was still one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL and worthy of the Pro Bowl status he held before the injury, Diggs showed he was not only back, it was as if he had never left. With 9:06 left in the fourth quarter and the Cowboys leading by 23 points, Diggs intercepted a Deshaun Watson pass that went through Elijah Moore's hands. It was Diggs' 19th interception in 48 career games. He is one of 13 players with at least that many picks in their first 48 games. Since 2021, his 16 interceptions are the most in the NFL, despite sitting out 15 games last season because of the injury. As good as it felt to get the ball back in his hands, Diggs later experienced the opposite emotion. In last week's 28-25 loss to the Baltimore Ravens, the Cowboys needed a stop to pull off an improbable 22-point comeback, but he was unable to prevent a 9-yard completion to Zay Flowers on 3rd and 6. "That was S-tie on my part," Diggs said. "I got to make that play regardless. That's on me." But being on the field and getting ready to play at the New York Giants on Thursday, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, Prime Video, is better than where he was a year ago, awaiting surgery. The journey back from an injury can be lonely. Players go to what a number of Diggs' teammates refer to as dark places. Not 2 months before he was hurt, he signed a 5-year extension worth $97 million that made him one of the highest-paid cornerbacks in the NFL. The games went on and Diggs became something of a forgotten man. Before this season began, ESPN asked coaches, front office executives, and scouts for their top 10 cornerbacks in the NFL. Diggs was not included, probably because of his injury, listed only as an honorable mention. In ESPN's survey in 2023, he was 8th. In 2022, a year after he had 11 interceptions, he was 10th. When he was asked in training camp if he drew motivation from that, Diggs playfully asked what the list said, but he already knew. "I feel like I'm in a league on my own," Diggs said when he was taken off the physically unable to perform list in late July. "There's nobody can do what I do." He mentioned Darren Bland, who led the NFL with 9 interceptions last season and set a league record with 5 pick-sixes. Bland has not played this season because of a stress fracture in his left foot and was also not among the top 10 corners, though he did receive some votes. "We don't care about no list," Diggs said. "Our work will show on the field. If you can pull another DB on that list that did anything that we did, show me." This is as animated as Diggs will get publicly. Even with Diggs' superstar status on the Cowboys, Micah Parsons calls him shy. They are something of an odd couple in their approaches. Parsons will talk about anything and everything to anyone. Diggs is more content to stay in the background. As Diggs went through the rehab process, Parsons often went to his house. He tried to keep Diggs' spirits up during the longest absence he has had from the game. They competed in video games and Connect 4. At training camp, they played ping pong. A lot of times, they just talked football. That's where Parsons found Diggs' spirit. Film room on his own. Puts in the extra. He don't look for credit from others. He doesn't have to be here to show it, Parsons said. "I can be calling Trey at 7:30, saying, 'Why aren't you on the video game?' He's like, 'Bro, I'm at Sanders, Fit Rehab and Therapy. I'm getting extra treatment on my knee.' I'm like, 'Oh snap, hit me when you get home.' So he's leaving here, going to get extra work on his knee to make sure he's prepared. So it's the things that no one else has to see. That's kind of like who he is and who he's become." Diggs puts in a lot of work to understand how opposing quarterbacks and receivers are going to attack him. "He is definitely a savant of this game," fellow cornerback Jordan Lewis said. "He understands this game, and I really think he's a genius at it, honestly. When he's in true form, I feel like he's one of the best defensive players in the game. It's amazing to see." Harris played 14 years in the NFL for 4 teams, including a 7-year run with the Green Bay Packers, with whom he won a Super Bowl. He has been an NFL assistant coach in all but 1 season since 2013 and was named the Cowboys' assistant head coach in the offseason. When he talks about Diggs, Harris mentions his Hall of Fame teammate Charles Woodson and the ability to mirror a receiver's route. Trey has an uncanny ability to catch the flash of the ball. So, as far as my job, it's to get him to just get the proper reads, just let him go from there, Harris said. And I think the genius aspect of it is from there. He runs routes. And it's been a long time since you've seen a defensive player run routes as a defensive player. To get there, Diggs studies a quarterback's 3, 5, and 7-step drops to know what routes to expect. He studies the splits the receivers take in certain down and distances and knows he can eliminate some routes. He understands route combinations. From a simple stance, he can know what a receiver wants to do. I've been in the league for, 5 years now, he said. So I'm kind of accustomed to the game and know the game speed. The interceptions are not an accident. A lot of people think he's just going out there guessing, jumping at stuff, but it's a method to the madness, Lewis said. I respect it. I can see it from a mile away. He prepares like no other. Diggs peppers Dak Prescott with questions during the week and jaws at the quarterback on the practice field. Prescott said Diggs' background as a receiver, 2-time All-Washington, D.C. Metro selection, played WR early on at Alabama, helps him at cornerback. He understands stems, breaking points, those things, Prescott said. And then he trusts himself. I think at the end of the day, when you play that position and you have the talent that he has, you have to trust yourself. After a torn ACL and months of rehab, that trust needs to be rebuilt. Can he plant and take off the way he did before? Will the knee hold up? Can he change direction in an instant, or is there an extra move to get into the right position? Through 3 games, it's there. Just as it was before the injury. Just all the work I put in gives me confidence, Diggs said. I feel comfortable. And I feel better than what I was before.
From the studios of K.L.P. Entertainment, this is SNN Sports.
Audio Jungle.
Threatened with jail over a scandal headlined by Brett Favre a little more than a year ago, a young reporter named Anna Wolf was the talk of this town and of journalism for a series of stories that won her the coveted Pulitzer Prize. She was invited to an exclusive dinner at the Washington home of legendary reporter Bob Woodward. A handful of media suitors reached out to see if she was ready to ditch Jackson and move on to the big time. She had even been offered a free treatment to rid her yard of mosquitoes by a local pest service. Wolf, a reporter with Mississippi Today, a non-profit, online news outlet, won the Pulitzer for detailing a disturbing $77 million welfare fraud scandal in the nation's second poorest state, a scandal headlined by Mississippi's most famous athlete, Brett Favre. The reporting described how, with then-Gov. Phil Bryant in office, Favre and a handful of others scored millions of dollars that were supposed to go to welfare families but were instead used on projects that included a college volleyball facility and a concussion drug company. Favre's involvement elevated the story into national news, providing fodder for talking heads from Fox News to ESPN. In no time, some people were going to sarcastic extremes over the story, such as shirts that went on sale saying, in all capital letters, Brett Favre stole money from poor people. Go Bears! Bryant and Favre both have said they had no idea the money was designated for welfare families. It was against that backdrop last spring, a month shy of her 29th birthday, that Wolf won the Pulitzer and celebrated with family, friends, and colleagues at Hal and Mal's, a Jackson institution. It was a moment that should have capped the journey on a story Wolf had been chasing for 5 years. Instead, not long after the Pulitzers were announced, the former governor sued Mississippi Today for defamation, setting off a battle that not only soured Wolf's and Mississippi Today's moment but, more troubling to Wolf, turned the focus away from the scandal itself. That's because not only has Bryant's lawsuit not gone away despite Mississippi Today's insistence that its reporting is truthful, but the former governor also recently asked a circuit court to hold Wolf and the news organization in contempt of court. The governor wants all of Wolf's notes. He wants her emails. He wants her confidential sources. And the judge has ordered, at the very least, that Wolf and Company show him what they've got so he can determine its relevance to the case. Mississippi Today has called the order unconstitutional and appealed to the state Supreme Court. Either way, Wolf and her boss, Adam Ganicho, have said there's no way they're giving up confidential sources. They say they would rather defy the court and face possible jail or, probably more likely, see their news organization get hammered with substantial damages. What was once a story about poverty, power, and Brett Favre has now become a battle involving the First Amendment. It has been nearly 20 years since I almost went to prison for refusing to give up a source while reporting for the San Francisco Chronicle. My situation also stemmed from a local story that exploded nationally, a story that was particularly elevated by the presence of a superstar athlete. That's why I was asked to write this story. I have a sense of what Wolf and Ganicho are thinking and facing, the hypotheticals they're entertaining about how it will play out, the challenges of trying to get actual work done when your legal case consumes hours of each day, the emotional toll from worrying about your loved ones and colleagues, the creeping self-doubt. I feel like I've almost been questioning my ability to discern truth, or that's what I think they want, Wolf says. When you're being told that you can't read something and interpret it correctly, what do you do with that? It's gaslighting, but I'd never come up against that before. Without question, Wolf's case and mine are very different. For me and my then colleague at the Chronicle, Lance Williams, ours was a leak investigation. We had been reporting stories for more than a year on a steroids distribution case that came to be famously known as the Balco scandal, named for the Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative. Our reporting revealed how some of the world's greatest athletes, most notably the San Francisco Giants slugger Barry Bonds, used steroids and other drugs to generate record-breaking performances. Our biggest blockbusters stemmed from the grand jury testimony of the athletes themselves. We quoted from transcripts in which most of the athletes admitted under oath to using a wide range of drugs. But those stories led the judge in the case to order an investigation into where we got the transcripts. Somebody, the judge said, unlawfully leaked material, and that somebody needed to pay. In the spring of 2006, Lance and I were subpoenaed to give up the source or sources of our stories. That season, as Bonds belted homer after homer into the San Francisco Bay to pass Babe Ruth an inch closer to becoming the greatest home run hitter ever, we squared off against the federal government. At one point, we appeared before a judge and were sentenced to up to 18 months in prison, but we were allowed to stay free while we appealed. The differences between our case and Anna Wolf's, ours was in the federal courts, hers in the state. She's being sued by a former governor for defamation, whereas we had the FBI coming after us. And another big difference, the material she used came from emails and text messages involving public officials. Wolf never quoted an anonymous source in any of her stories. Despite the differences, I have a unique understanding of Wolf's experience, and we share common ground in the fact that a nationally famous athlete looms over the reporting. Something Wolf has never loved. That said, she recognizes Favre's place in the story has drawn attention to the reporting and exposed it to a far broader audience. I think that Favre's involvement in this story obviously led to everything that happened after, and I didn't really appreciate that, Wolf said. I didn't really appreciate how that was going to impact how many people paid attention to the story and how the number of people who pay attention to the story changes the story. Favre, meanwhile, has waged his own defamation battle with the media. Specifically, the former Packers quarterback filed lawsuits against former NFL tight end Shannon Sharpe and media personality Pat McAfee, who both now appear on ESPN. The suit against McAfee was dropped after the commentator essentially apologized and said he was joking. The Sharpe case stems from him calling Favre a sorry mofo to steal from the lowest of the low and saying Favre stole money from people that really needed that money. The lawsuit was dismissed last year, but Favre asked an appeals court in July to revive his case. On September 16, the court turned him down. Also in July, Favre's business associate in the concussion drug company, Jacob Van Landingham, pleaded guilty to wire fraud in the welfare fraud criminal case. 6 others also have pleaded guilty in the case. Favre has not been charged with any wrongdoing. In April 2022, Mississippi Today published The Back Channel, a 5-part series released over 2 weeks. Using Phil Bryant's own words, in never-before-published conversations, Mississippi Today said the stories uncovered the depth of the former governor's involvement within a sprawling welfare scandal that plagued his administration. The very first story began, former Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant used the authority of his office, the weight of his political influence and the power of his connections to help his friend and retired NFL quarterback Brett Favre boost a fledgling pharmaceutical venture. The series described how the Favre-backed company and a volleyball project at his alma mater received millions of dollars that were supposed to go to the state's poorest people. Bryant did not sue the organization immediately after those stories were published, nor did he sue within a year of the stories running, as defamation cases require by state law. But then, in February of last year, just months before the Pulitzers were to be announced, Mississippi Today's CEO Mary Margaret White appeared on a panel at a national conference and said, "We're the newsroom that broke the story about $77 million in welfare funds, intended for the poorest people in the poorest state in the nation, being embezzled by a former governor and his bureaucratic cronies and used on pet projects like a state-of-the-art volleyball stadium at Brett Favre's alma mater." Since White made her statement, Louisiana has passed Mississippi to have the country's highest poverty rate, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. There was a major problem with White's statement. In fact, Wolf's reporting did not at all suggest Bryant had embezzled money, and the former governor had denied even knowing any funds were misused. On May 8, Wolf and Mississippi Today won the Pulitzer. 2 days later, Bryant's lawyer, Billy Quinn, addressed a letter to White, Wolf and Ganicho, demanding a retraction and an apology for White's false and defamatory statement, as well as statements by Wolf and Ganicho that no one from Mississippi Today had claimed Bryant had committed any crimes. Quinn alleged the two made their remarks in a podcast after White made her statement. 1 week after Quinn sent his demand letter to Mississippi Today, a note from White was posted on the organization's website. It began, "I misspoke at a recent media conference regarding the accusations against former Governor Phil Bryant in the $77 million welfare scandal. He has not been charged with any crime. My remark was inappropriate, and I sincerely apologize." Quinn says he and Bryant didn't view that as a sincere apology. They were particularly struck by the suggestion that White misspoke and that there were accusations against Bryant, as well as the inclusion of the line, "He has not been charged with any crime." The governor's lawsuit followed soon after. "That's why this whole thing is so incredibly frustrating," Wolf says. "I am getting punished for something that I had no control over. I think most people can see that. I can't even start to describe what a travesty that is. That sucks, because it wasn't the reporting." White says, "Anna's reporting is airtight. As I said in my apology, I made a mistake, and it's something I wrestle with every day because of the good work of Mississippi Today and of Anna particularly." Billy Quinn says he's largely known for supporting Democrats in a state run largely by Republicans. He insists he has great respect for the press and, in fact, points to a framed article in his office written by Jerry Mitchell, Mississippi's most famous and accomplished investigative journalist. Mitchell's work at the Clarion Ledger led to the reopening of several cold case murders from the civil rights era, and he now works with Wolf at Mississippi Today. Nevertheless, Quinn says he believes that Wolf and Mississippi Today had it out for Bryant, and that the Back Channels series is and was a pretext for turning the welfare fraud scandal into a political weapon. Quinn says that he didn't sue over Wolf's initial reporting within the one-year window because he was juggling other issues related to the welfare fraud case, and it took me that long to get my arms around it. Quinn insists both in an interview and in his filings that his case also stems from articles Wolf has written in the past year and statements she and Ganicho have made during interviews. But it's clear White's comments at the national conference are what set off the governor and opened the door for Quinn even to be able to file suit. And during a 90-minute interview, the lawyer repeatedly cited White's words in explaining his case. Would Bryant have sued if White hadn't said what she said? It's a good question. I don't know. Maybe, Quinn says. It most certainly launched the idea. It was sort of what caused the dam to break. It was the thing where the line was drawn and we said, enough is enough. Regardless, Quinn believes he has every right to get Wolf's confidential sources, notes, and even internal emails to see if there's anything that suggests a bias toward Bryant. To win libel cases against journalists, plaintiffs must meet the standard established by a 1964 Supreme Court ruling that requires proving the defendant knew the statements were false or published them with reckless disregard for the truth or actual malice. Quinn argues that, to help meet that standard, he needs access to internal emails or conversations with confidential sources. Asked about the implications of going after that material, Quinn says, "I hope the implication is that if you're a reporter and you lie about somebody, you better be ready to defend your lies. And if you cannot, you should understand that there are consequences that go with that. You're not immune to the law. You're not." Wolf and Mississippi Today insist there's nothing inaccurate in their reporting. On Wednesday, the organization received the National Press Club's highest honor for press freedom. Most states in the country, including Mississippi, have recognized at least a limited privilege that protects reporters from being forced to give up confidential sources. Even so, there's no formal shield law in Mississippi, and no case has ever made its way up to the state Supreme Court until now. First Amendment advocates say that, without shield law protections, sources would be far less likely to come forward with critical information that serves the public interest. Mississippi Today's lawyers have argued that the court should rule first about whether Wolf has a privilege that will keep her from having to give up her sources. Quinn says the law is clear that the circuit court should get to look at the material first, and that by refusing even to show the judge what they've got, Wolf and company should be held in contempt. That doesn't necessarily mean jail. He says the court has wide discretion on possible sanctions, which could include fines, perhaps the more likely scenario in a defamation suit in which Bryant wants compensation if he can prove his case. "This is a suit for money damages," Quinn said. "I'd much prefer a default judgment." There's no timeline for when the Mississippi Supreme Court will rule on Bryant's lawsuit. It could be weeks or months. Wolf has largely moved on to different stories, even as she seeks peace amid the uncertainty. Local journalism is clearly dying, slowly and painfully. This is true in Mississippi as much as anywhere. The Clarion Ledger, once the paper of record in the capital and once Wolf's employer, now has just 5 news reporters to cover state and local news, one of whom is an intern. The paper recently reported on the closing of 3 100-year-old weeklies. Last year, more than 2.5 newspapers shut down per week, according to a Northwestern University report, which added that nearly 2,900 local papers and 43,000 reporting jobs have been lost since 2005. During that time, a nonprofit model emerged to varying degrees of success. White has said the organization's annual budget is $2 million, most of which is used to pay reporters and editors on a staff of 23. Bryant's case is having a financial impact on Mississippi Today. The organization employs a local First Amendment lawyer, and it also has hired national outside counsel to support its case. Ganicho says his organization already has used more than $500,000 from a $1 million insurance policy to cover legal fees. It's the kind of thing that leads him to say he fears financial losses more than personal ones. "I would almost rather personally sit in jail for months than let that happen," Ganicho says. Really? That legal expense would have this huge long-term effect on our ability to do this journalism in Mississippi. I recently spent a couple days with Anna Wolf in Jackson, asking about her experience and sharing mine. She had lots of questions, as did I, and the conversations were sometimes difficult. In describing her life at the moment, Wolf was at once steely and businesslike, then apt to break down in tears when asked how she was doing. It was clearly not a weakness thing. I could see she was overwhelmed at times. And frustrated. And angry. For one thing, she believes Bryant's lawsuit is designed to make her and other reporters second-guess themselves. "I don't want it to seem like I'm thrown in a tizzy by this, I just want to get it right," Wolf said, explaining the challenges affecting her mindset. "And I don't want anything I'm talking about to be perceived as me questioning whether I got it right. Because I did get it right."
Audio Jungle.
Yeah. From the studios of K.L.P. Entertainment, this is SNN.